I don't think it really matters. It comes down to the individual. It's about aptitude, competence, your ability to learn quickly. Obviously, if you're a graduate and you're coming from a particular academic background, that will, in essence, align with certain paths. So, if you want to move into UX research or strategy, then a cognitive studies, cognitive science, behavioural science, academic background might be preferred. And of course, if you're actually working in design, there's a strong visual element, so that's part you want to take, then you need to be able to design. So you would expect academia in that. But in terms of experience, I don't think it's a hindrance to be from visual and want to become a UX strategist. And frankly, to come from a sort of UX research and maybe if you have the design ability, move into a much more kind of UI-led path. It just comes down to the individual.
Yeah, I think visual designers coming into UX is actually a really natural transition. I teach quite a lot, and a lot of my students are people in visual design wanting to become UXers. But that's the distinction between visual design and just straight out graphic design. Because even in digital platforms or software, a visual designer should never be just painting, right, with a visual skin. What they are doing in terms of the color, the brand palette, icons, a whole lot of elements that visual designers work with, as I said earlier, can either make or break all the work that has gone in ahead of that. So visual design, I think, Damien, like you said, it has the power to influence. So whatever techniques you're using, whether it's thinking about, cognitive psychology or it's behavioral, but it has the power to influence how people are experiencing that software that you've actually created. So to me, that's actually a very logical transition. And I think if the visual designer is coming at it from the right mindset, then for them it's really easy. However, I think it's hard for people to go the other way, for UXers to become visual designers, because there's a whole technical skill that goes with visual design as well, that UXers typically don't have.
Like the way we interview, usually we asking designers to tell a story about how it's like portfolio can look interesting, but then you're asking these questions and trying to understand how you come about this solution, what was the problem, and this story is usually what you look into in a potential UX designer. You want to understand how the process is structured, and I think this thinking you can evaluate at a very early stage. Like you can find topics to discuss, to find even without necessarily high-profile work, you can find some project or person demonstrated capacity to think through and do research and show you what it means to actually create a better product.
I'm coming from the agency perspective, so we deal with clients a lot. Communication was really big on kind of my needs when Neil was asking, and that is kind of one of my key gauge of seniority actually. So we were talking about junior positions versus senior UXers, and a lot of times it's not down to a wireframe is a wireframe, a design is a design when you look at a portfolio, but that level of communication that you can direct when talking to your interviewer or when my team is talking to the clients or when they're talking to the other parts of the talking to other teams, communicating what they would like to get in terms of questions or answers or how do they work with the rest of the teams. Those are all parts of the communication skills that you need to have. That to me, that defines a lot of a big part of how senior you are. So I put a lot of gauge on that quality, and it's when we say, if we bring in senior designers or we bring in senior consultants, a big part of that was, can they communicate with the client? Can they communicate with the client without someone more senior holding their hand? Can they take that client or take the rest of the team on their own? And that kind of defines it. So that's why communication is very important to me.
I think communication skills are what I would call partly will, partly skills. So someone may be a good communicator, but if they're not in the environment where they're encouraged to communicate, they never will. But fundamentally, in all businesses, it comes down to good leadership. So if you have a team or people that you're mentoring, you need to be inclusive with them regardless of how outgoing, forward or forthcoming they are. And I think empowering people to have a voice is really, really critical to get the best out of them. And I see in a lot of businesses that's not always the case, but it certainly should be.
I was just going to say, I would recommend putting yourself in safe, low-risk, uncomfortable positions. As soon as you're out of your comfort zone, that's when you have to really call on your communication skills to deal with whatever it is that's going on. And yeah, like someone I think on the panel said, it's up to your leaders. It's, and if they're not giving you that opportunity, then go and ask for it and find out where those opportunities are and place yourself in there. Because if you're not in that uncomfortable position, it's that practice of learning on the fly how to communicate when and how, with whom, what language. And if you can't do it, then at least be present in the room where the dialogue is going on, so that after the event you can have a conversation about, well, how could we have done that differently, or what was the gap in communication, why were we not able to get our messaging across. But it is about finding those safe, low risk opportunities, but putting yourself out of your comfort zone, that's the best way, because that's when you need to call on your knowledge of the technique or the method, or is it something political that the conversation is going on, then you have to understand the agenda that the person is speaking to you with, and then you find the right ways to respond. I was doing a big piece in the Philippines for a bank, and we had a 3-hour presentation workshop on our work, and we had a number of slides, and I had my junior with me, and the junior was going to do all the introduction and set the scene, all the easy stuff. This is what we did, here's the research, blah blah blah, before we got into the really challenging messages we had to deliver. And 3 slides in, the president of the bank said, that's all wrong, that's all rubbish. And what he was seeing on the screen was really what his staff members had said to us as part of the research and consultation process. So the poor junior kind of looked at me like this, like, as you would. But then it was really about saying, okay, how do we have this dialogue now? What is this person's blocker, and how do we work around it? So we had to obviously pivot the whole rest of the session and find the right way to communicate our message to him, otherwise he was just going to shut down.
I'll do the same story in terms of clients. We talked about job seekers, we talked about internal teams. From a client perspective, you sit in the meeting and you'll have these clients that gives you the stupid ideas, right? You sit there and you go. But then I think the way to tackle this is that that's when kind of your open-mindedness and your empathy kicks in. So you don't your first reaction will be what idea, how did you come up with that? It's completely kind of out there and it's completely ugly. But then the next question is absolutely all the time is so I heard you, and why did you want that? Why did you want this big red button in the middle of the page? And very often you'll have to force them into that why, and that's when, as a UXer, that is kind of the core job as a user experience professional, is to find out the why. And that's kind of a lot of times what one of our first questions in response to everything, right? It's a very easy question, is why? Why do you want that? Why would it best to the designers, to the clients? And that's always helps us with kind of the next step, once you understand that why. And that goes back to the empathy and the open-mindedness.
But actually it brings me on to a very, very similar train of thought. So I want to kind of jump on the back of your question. And actually my question is for the panel, since you are the experts. I think design as a nomenclature is a minefield, particularly when it comes to titling. And if you're looking to move or pursue a career within the design realm, or you're already within the design realm, and you're looking to just move forward, it can be incredibly difficult to position yourself in the right way. And 3 key design titles that are commonly used by most businesses. There's a lot of disparity between but who and which they use, is UX design, UX designer, service designer, and experience designer. How do you distinguish between the three of those? Sorry.
I don't say they're the best answers, they're my answers. To answer your question first, honestly, I don't think there is any different. All of them, it's a mindset, and they're all just called different things. The core part there is about building a product or a service or software or whatever it is, user up instead of business down. Obviously, we say that whatever a UX designer or a design thinker is doing ultimately has to consider the business lens as well. If you're good at what you do, it's about feasibility, viability, as well as the customer voice. But yeah, it's a mindset, and all those mindsets are keeping the end user, human customer, at the center of that. So it's building the product from them up rather than business down. I remember it was about a year ago, 15 months ago, I saw Harvard Business Review magazine, and it was all about design thinking, the new way. You know, I thought, oh, okay, let me see what HBR is saying, because this is going to be interesting. And I read the article and I practically fell asleep because I thought this is what we've been doing in the industry for so long. So it's just jargon, it's the buzzword, and it's what we, I guess, the industry likes to do every now and then. And to that same point with service design, it's to me the layers are actually UX, CX, service design, and experience design. And to my definitions, to my definition, is a textbook? I don't know. It's my definition. I'll say because. User experience is about thinking about how your user is going to interact with one particular piece of the puzzle. The example I like to use is a form. If you're designing a web form, you're thinking about how is the user going to interact with that form, how is it going to be seamless, quick, intuitive, less errors, blah, 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 whether they're filling out that form, let's say in a mobile app or in a website. Customer experience is thinking more about every single touch point and channel that your customer is engaging with you through. So in the example of the form, you're thinking about what is the customer's experience if they're filling out that form in a branch, or if they're filling it out digitally, or if they're filling it out by calling a call center and there's a support person on the other end filling the form out for them. To me, that's customer experience. Service design, on the other hand, is thinking about all of the business processes that's lying behind that form. So what's affecting how that form is created, entered? Do we actually have so much information about the customer that they don't even need to fill out that form? How can we actually make that a smoother process for them? And then experience design is a tricky one, actually, Damien. I think experience design is somehow wrapped around all of that. That is, in a way, one of these new buzzwords. You know, transdisciplinary designer is the other one that I've heard coming up. And I think that starts to move more into maybe spatial design as well. That one I'm still trying to figure out myself. But I think it moves beyond any of those other normal channels into spatial as well.